So, you've probably heard this term floating around everywhere, sustainable development. You see it on corporate websites, you hear it from politicians, you see it on protest signs, but what does it actually mean? Today, we're going to cut through all that noise and really get to the heart of this critical balancing act that honestly could define our future.
I mean, seriously, it feels like it's everywhere, right?
You've got the UN using it, huge corporations, activists out on the street, and when everybody's using a term, for their own reasons, the real meaning, it can get pretty blurry. So let's nail down what it's actually all about.
All right, so let's get right into it. What exactly is sustainable development?
At its heart, it really boils down to these two big ideas that are kind of always in a tug of war. On one hand, you have needs. This is about the basic, essential stuff: food, water, a safe place to live, especially for the world's poorest people. But then, on the other hand, we have to deal with limits. And that's just the reality that our planet's resources are not infinite. There's only so much it can give, and there's only so much it can take.
Now, this idea didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It really started taking shape back in the 80s. The UN put together this team of experts, right, from all over the world, rich countries, developing countries, and in 1987 they came out with this game-changing report called Our Common Future. You might also hear it called the Brundtland Report. That was a huge deal. And it all led up to the 1992 Earth Summit, which gave us Agenda 21, basically a global game plan to make this stuff happen.
And out of that report came what is probably the most famous definition ever. It's so powerful because it's so simple. It says, sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. It's brilliant, right? It's about taking care of ourselves now, but, and this is the whole point, doing it in a way that doesn't screw over our kids and grandkids. It's about fairness through time.
Okay, so that's the big idea. But how do you actually do it? Well, the concept is usually broken down into three main pillars. And the trick is, they all have to be in balance.
So, pillar number 1, the biological system, basically nature. The goals here are pretty straightforward, but massive. We're talking about preserving genetic diversity, all the amazing variety of plants and animals. We need to make sure our ecosystems, like our forests and oceans, are resilient, that they can bounce back from damage. And we need to keep them productive, so they can keep giving us the things we rely on, like crops and fish and clean air.
Pillar number 2 is the economic system. Now, this is not just about let's grow the economy at all costs. No way. The key here is that the growth has to be focused on meeting basic human needs, on pulling people out of poverty. It has to be fair. It has to be equitable. The idea is that everyone gets a piece of the pie, not just the people at the top.
And that brings us to the third pillar, the social system. This is the people part of the puzzle. It's all about protecting different cultures around the world, building strong, stable communities, and this one's huge, making sure that regular people get a say in the decisions that affect their lives. It's about justice, it's about participation. Now you might be thinking, okay, 3 pillars, seems logical, but this is where things get really interesting. Because when you start talking about how to balance them, a massive debate opens up, and it gets right to the core of what we're talking about. This really breaks down into 2 main ways of thinking. On one side, you've got what's called strong sustainability. People in this camp believe that nature is, well, special. It's priceless. You can't just cut down an ancient rainforest and build a factory and say it all evens out. For them, protecting the environment has to come first, period. But then you have the other side, weak sustainability. This view is more like, well, we can substitute things. We can use up some natural resources as long as we replace them with man-made stuff, like technology, so that our total wealth as a society stays the same or grows.
And this isn't just some academic debate, It has huge, real-world consequences, especially when you look at how development has actually played out across the globe. Because this challenge, it's not the same for everybody.
The story of economic growth hasn't been this fairy tale where everyone gets richer together. Not at all. It's created a world with deep, deep inequalities, where some have gotten incredibly wealthy, while others are left dealing with the environmental fallout and stuck in poverty.
And this is where the picture gets really stark. Look at the burdens on the left. This is what falls on the world's poorest communities. We're talking ruined land, deforestation, polluted air and water, and then look at the sources on the right. Where is this coming from? So often, it's driven by the super high consumption levels in wealthy nations, by industrial activity, and by the fact that a powerful few control the resources.
So why does this keep happening? Well, it really all comes down to power and voice.
The people and the countries with the most power, they get to decide who benefits from all this growth and who ends up paying the price environmentally. Poor communities often don't have the political clout to stop their local environment from being trashed, and this unfairness, this fight over resources, it can lead to all sorts of conflict and instability.
And this right here, this brings us to the real heart of the matter. Sustainable development isn't just some technical checklist or a science problem we can solve with a new invention.
This is probably the most important thing to understand. We can't just engineer our way out of this mess. We could have the most amazing green technology in the world, but if we don't fix the underlying problems of power, of fairness, of who gets to decide, we're not going to get there. It is at its core a political and an ethical problem.
And that means we have to start asking ourselves some really uncomfortable questions, like who's really to blame for the environmental mess we're in? Who should get to control the world's resources? How do we build a system that's actually fair for everyone living today? And how do we balance all of our needs with the needs of generations we'll never even meet?
So in the end, it all comes back to that word, balance. A balance between our needs and the planet's limits. A balance between the environment, the economy, and our societies. And a balance between us, right now, and the future. But getting to that balance, it's going to have a cost. And the real question, the one we all have to grapple with, is this: who's going to bear it?